Good morning, everybody. We're live from the birdhouse. It is Saturday, May 7th, the day before Mother's Day, and we are in spring migration big time. There's all kinds of interesting things flowing into the area since we last broadcast. There's been some new sightings for a lot of people, so excited to report some of those. You guys have been sending in some really great photos too, so we'll share your photos. As always, we want to know what kind of things you're seeing in your yard, so absolutely post those in the comments. If your yard is anything like mine, you've been getting some new and different things this week. So really excited to hear what kind of things you guys are seeing. I know I've been getting white crowned sparrow. I hadn't had them all year. And then all of a sudden I've got 3 white crowned sparrow bopping around on the ground outside the feeders. I've had my first gray catbird come to the Oriole feeder. That was really exciting. And then just listening to the Merlin Sound ID has been really interesting. If you've got that app, if you've got a smartphone, I cannot stress enough just how cool it is. It's if you can kind of see it there, it's absolutely free, and they have something called the Sound ID feature. The little microphone, and if you click on that, it'll tell you what kind of birds you're hearing chirping around. So I even had a black-throated green warbler in my neighborhood somewhere right outside my window. The other day I heard while I was folding laundry, I pulled out my Merlin app, and sure enough, there was a black-throated green warbler singing right in my front yard. So you never know what kind of things you might have passing through this time of the year. So we're going to share some new things that are flowing into the area, answer any kind of questions you have. If you have questions, absolutely put those in the comments. And then we'll show you some of the more popular products that we've been selling recently that people have been using with really good success to get some of these birds in their yard. So let's get started. We've got lots to share. First of all, let's look at our bird migration map here. So we've been, every day it seems more and more things are flowing into the area. And if you look at the forecast here of how many birds are supposed to be flowing through the U.S., it's been growing and growing and growing. When we first started looking at it, it was pretty low, in the probably in the 200 million kind of numbers, and now it's been growing and growing and growing. We're getting into the 300s as far as the different types or the different numbers as far as birds flowing through the area. So when we first started looking at these maps, it was kind of bright yellow down here in the south only, and now you can see how it's changing. So the lighter it gets, the more migration activity that there is. So there's a whole bunch of migration happening here in the central U.S. And this is the projection of what's going to be migrating through tonight, going into tomorrow. And then as we look into the following night, it gets even wider, more and more birds coming in. You can see it goes from 315 million to 359 birds flowing into the area. So this is from Sunday night going into Monday, and then Monday going into Tuesday. About 357 million birds are predicted to be flowing through the U.S. And you can see it's starting to get even brighter in our area up here in upstate New York. So this week we should see even more and more activity, both at your feeders and when you're out birding. So definitely keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. You never know what you're going to find, even in your backyard this time of the year. So we started getting Oriole reports kind of early in the season. The first report we had was sent in by Chris here. We've shown this photo before on April 25th. But usually once one person reports an Oriole, all of a sudden a ton of other people are starting to report them. It's been kind of more of a slow trickle this year. So if you haven't had any Orioles yet, don't worry. I was just complaining this morning how I hadn't seen any Orioles yet. And just as I was leaving for work, I grabbed my keys, and what was in my backyard? But this Oriole right here. So I just got my first one this morning. So if you haven't gotten them yet, don't be discouraged, because I just got my first one, and I thought, boy, it's getting kind of late, but I think that it might just be a little bit delayed with some of the lousy weather we've been having. So this is my very grainy cell phone photo in my backyard here of my first Oriole that appeared this morning. And other people have been getting Orioles trickling in. This picture was sent in by Bob, who said, like 2 peas in a pod. Once the Oriole arrives, it is soon followed by the gray catbird. And so here's the gray catbird also feeding from that jelly feeder. So you don't need anything really elaborate to attract the Orioles. This is just a little hanging cup feeder we sell here for $8.95. Super simple. Fill it with grape or birdberry jelly, and the birds will absolutely love it. I had my first catbird on Tuesday. I saw coming to my jelly feeder, and that's the first catbird I've seen all year. So they're coming back as well, which is pretty cool. So both of these birds, the Oriole and the gray catbird, you can find coming to that jelly feeder especially, and sometimes the oranges as well, the great catbirds will eat. Here is another Oriole photo sent in by Wojtek, who was out hiking. So not coming to feeders, but some Orioles out there in the field. And here's another photo sent in by Bob, again at his feeder. He said, here are 2 of the 4 male Baltimore Orioles that showed up at the same time to eat. One of the 4, the juvenile, decided on the orange-flavored suet. One of the more adult-looking males decided on the birdberry jelly. So here's a couple different photos here sent in by Bob of the Orioles. So there's the male and the juvenile. So really cool photos there. So the Orioles will sometimes come to suet. We just had a customer said that they have all their jelly feeders out, but they've got Orioles right now eating their suet. So orange flavored suet would probably be your best bet as far as attracting them, but it sounds like they're not being very, very picky. They're hungry coming in from their migration. So they do look for things that have a lot of fat in them, like suet. And then earlier this week, this is another one of my fantastic grainy cell phone photos. I had my first rose-breasted grosbeak, which was pretty cool. I believe this was Wednesday morning. I had my first male, and so there it is, perched on top of my feeder pole there, and of course surrounded by some of the other usual cast of characters, the house sparrows, and I also had a female house finch there at the same time. So it's been a lot of sparrows at the feeders, but then all of a sudden I started getting the grosbeaks and a whole bunch of house finches as well showing up. So it can get discouraging if you're seeing just a whole bunch of sparrows and nothing else. But then once you start getting some of these other birds, it makes it all worthwhile. And then taken with a bit of a better photo, this is in my bag, or with a better camera. This is a female rose-breasted grosbeak that showed up yesterday, and she has just been hanging out all yesterday. She was there this morning, and she is chowing down on safflower. So these safflower logs, you can't see it where she's perched right now, but she's perched on a feeder, and above her is one of these safflower logs that you can kind of see in my grainy photo there. And she is just chowing on it. So she must be super hungry. She isn't frightened off much at all. I was able to go outside and get a better view of her. She didn't fly away at all. So she must be really, really hungry from her migration. And she is just gorging herself out of everything available. She's going for this safflower log. So just like the cardinals will eat it, the grosbeaks will too. For something that the sparrows aren't going to completely demolish right away, I would go with the safflower log. It lasts a longer time because they have to peck away at it. They don't just grab the seed and go. They do have to peck away at it in order to feed. So I found it lasts a lot longer. And the sparrows, while they will eat it, it's not their ultimate favorite. So that can help as well, help it last longer. So this is my female rose-breasted grosbeaks. I'm excited that they are back, and some of you guys have been seeing them as well. Here's another photo sent in by Wojtek of a rose-breasted grosbeak. Beautiful male right there. Mark said in this photo, he said, I saw 3 rose-breasted grosbeaks in my backyard along with the catbird eating the jelly and orange suet. So here's some photos that he sent in of the beautiful rose-breasted grosbeak. It seemed like yesterday and the day before we were getting lots of reports of rose-breasted grosbeaks coming back. So if you are trying to attract them, make sure you've got something with enough perching room for them. Anything that will attract a cardinal, they can also sit on. So big perching room is the best. And then some kind of sunflower seed or safflower seed is ideal for the rose-breasted grosbeaks. I love this photo here too. I can't tell if it's singing or squawking or what it's doing. So really, really cool. And then also, Mark sent in this photo. He says, I saw 3 rose-breasted grosbeaks in my backyard, along with the catbird eating the jelly and orange suet. So here's a really good photo of the gray catbird. And here you can see it's got its very gray wash. It's got that black cap on the top of its head. And then it also has this almost like a reddish cinnamon color there just above its tail. So that is the gray catbird. So keep an eye out for them at your feeders right now. And here's the gray catbird eating some of the orange suet. So not only might you get orioles coming to the orange suet, but the gray catbirds this time of the year. So really neat sighting. Hummingbird reports are starting to trickle in, but we haven't gotten a lot of reports on them yet either. So I'm wondering if they're held up a little bit. We've had a few people saying that they've seen them. We had Chris send in this photo super early, April 25th. She had a hummingbird, but so far, not a lot of reports. So if you haven't seen a hummingbird yet, don't be alarmed. We were talking hummingbirds on Tuesday on our broadcast. And so if you're looking for some more information about how to attract hummingbirds, you can pull that broadcast up. And I should mention too, we're doing a giveaway of these pouches of ready-to-use nectar, and we still have a few left. So Josh from the Sweet Seed Company, who joined us on Tuesday for the broadcast, was nice enough to donate 12 packets of this ready-to-use nectar, and we still have a couple left. So if you're coming into the store today, make sure to mention you saw the broadcast, and you'll get one of these for absolutely free. So just in case you're doing some Mother's Day shopping, pop in the store, and you'll get a free nectar. And reports of ruby crown kinglets are still high. So if you're out hiking and you see something that could possibly be a warbler because it's bouncing around, it's hard to get your binoculars on it, hard to get a photo of it. It could very well be one of these ruby crowned kinglets. And it's tough right now because there's warblers out too. Not all the warblers are super, super bright colored. Some of them are just kind of like yellowish and grayish, but the ruby crowned kinglets are kind of a nondescript bird, so there's not a lot of bright color to them, but they're small, they bounce around a lot, and if you're lucky, you can see, not all the time, but you can see that they've got a little bit of a ruby crown on the top of their head, and sometimes they will flare it out, so the males will flare it out to attract a female, so sometimes it'll look like this, so they can be a little bit tough to identify until you really get a good glimpse of them. But they've got what's called a broken eye ring. So it's not a complete white circle around their eye, but it almost looks like 2 parentheses kind of around their eye. They've got the wing bars, so the white wing bar there. They've got a yellowish wash on their wings. So keep an eye out for them because there's been a lot of them around. So I wouldn't be surprised if you could even find one in your backyard right now. So those are called ruby crowned kinglets. And brown thrasher, earlier Bob had reported a brown thrasher in his backyard singing, and other people have been sending in photos too and have been seeing brown thrasher. Here's a photo, again sent in by Wojtek, of a brown thrasher, and I like this photo because it shows identifying characteristics. So the thrashers can sometimes get mixed up with birds called thrushes. A robin is a type of thrush, so kind of birds with that type of body type. There are thrushes that look a lot like brown thrashers. They're brown, they've got speckles on their breasts, but brown thrashers are going to be bigger than your thrushes. They're more of a kind of like a cinnamon color, so they're brown, but it's kind of a warm colored brown. They've got a really long tail too. So if you look at this photo, you can really see the length of the tail, and you can see just how long that tail is. And they have what's called a decurved bill, which you won't see in a thrush. So a thrush's beak is normally just going to stick out straight. Like think of your robin's beak, they're just straight. But the brown thrasher has a decurved bill, so it curves down a little bit. So, and that's some ways that you can tell the brown thrasher apart from some of the thrushes that we have here. So brown thrasher are in that mimicking family, so they're related to that gray catbird we saw earlier, and also mockingbirds. So that is your brown thrasher, really cool sighting. And then warblers. So every day we'll be getting reports of new and different warblers. But here's an update of some that you can see right now, starting with two of the most common. Here is a yellow warbler, and gets its name, of course, because it's all bright yellow. So we've got lots of different types of warblers that have yellow on them, but this is going to be the most bright, all around yellow type of warbler. So not much other color to them besides bright yellow, but most of the time they will have this pretty nice, almost reddish colored streaking on their breast, and they sing a lot. So if you are using that Merlin app to ID some sounds, you might hear the yellow warbler singing, and they're quite common right now in the area. So look around for yellow warbler, especially if you're out birding. Look for some little shrubs. Look around for shrubs. If you see little things bopping around in there, you've probably got some warblers, probably got some kinglets. So it's worth taking your binoculars and seeing what kind of species you have there. Mark sent in this photo from Montezuma of another yellow warbler. So you can see just how bright yellow they are. So bright yellow like a goldfinch, but they don't have any black on them like that goldfinch will, but they've got that really black eye. And then they've got that striping on their breasts. So, and here's another yellow warbler. So it's going to be one of your most common. So that's a really good one to start with. It can be difficult to learn all the warblers, all the 30 plus that we have that flow through, but this is a perfect one to start with. So there's your yellow warbler. And then the yellow rumped warbler is going to be another very common warbler we've got in the area here, and they are definitely around. They can vary a little bit with color, so we'll see some of the different looks that they might have, but they will have this yellow wash on their sides. They've got some yellow on the top of their head, and then they do have a yellow rump, which you can kind of see in this photo here, even though it's dark, but we'll see some better examples of it. Here is another example of a yellow rumped warbler. It is not as brightly colored as that male we just saw, but it still has that yellow rump patch on its butt there. So this is your yellow rumped warbler, again a common bird. And if you're out birding, you can impress all your friends by calling them butterbutts. That's what the lingo is. That's what people call them. So that's the yellow rumped warbler. A lot of you guys have been sending in photos of yellow rumped warbler. Here's another photo here of one. So really pretty bird. And that's going to be another common warbler that we have here in the area right now. So yellow rumped warbler. Lots of photos sent in. And here's another photo sent in by Bob where you can see that patch right there on its rump. So bright yellow little rump patch. Black and white warblers are in the area. A lot of you guys have been seeing them. You can find them most of the time on tree trunks. So we've talked in the past about the brown creepers and nuthatches, how they'll climb up or down trunks. The black and white warbler do the same type of thing. So normally you can see them kind of crawling. A lot of warblers will kind of bop, like fly around and kind of jump around in trees. The black and white warblers tend to crawl on trees. So they're going to crawl up the trunks of trees. They'll crawl along branches of trees. So if you see something doing more of a crawl and not flying from one place to another, it's probably going to be a black and white warbler. They're not going to have that full black cap on the top of their head like a chickadee would or like a black pole warbler would, but they're going to be black and white with all the stripes. So another common we have here in the area. I had one in my backyard once. I saw just randomly crawling on a tree. So you just never know this time of the year. This one isn't zoomed in as much, but so you might want to pull up your warbler guide. But this is a Nashville warbler sent in by Bob. He said, I tried different editing techniques, but overcast and early morning leads to so-so photos. I think this is a Nashville warbler. And yes, it is. So it's a little dark, but the Nashville warbler has some yellow on its breast. It's got kind of a gray head and a white eye ring. So another type of warbler that we've got in the area. So really cool. And on Tuesday, we're going to be talking all about warblers. So we'll show you not only the warblers that are in the area now, but the other ones that are coming in. So we'll give you the full the full breadth of the warblers that we have in the area. So that should be fun. A palm warbler. So here's another one. So if you think about your yellow warbler, it's really, really bright yellow with those streaks on it. This is another yellowish warbler, but it has a chestnut colored cap on the top of its head. So this was sent in by Mark, who saw this at Kingsman Park. And here's another photo of it here. So very yellowish colored warbler, but look at that cap on the top of its head. It's got that kind of reddish chestnut colored cap. So there's another photo of it there. And then pine warbler is also seen. They've also been around. Like their name suggests, you can usually find them in pine trees. They're going to be quite yellow, but not as much as the yellow warbler. So the yellow warbler will have yellow wings and everything. The pine warbler has these 2 white wing bars, though, so you can identify them that way. So that's one way to identify that pine warbler. So they've been seen around. And here's a photo sent in by Mark, who saw them at Mendham Ponds. So very yellowish colored warbler, but not as bright as your yellow warbler. And it's got that grayish wing with the 2 white wing bars. Now here's another one we haven't talked about yet this year that's coming into the area. This is called a black-throated blue warbler. And like its name suggests, it has a black throat and it's blue. So there's not too many bluish colored warblers we have. There's a cerulean warbler, which isn't going to be very common, especially in backyards. You might see them at Cobb's Hill or something like that, but probably not in your backyard. But black-throated blue warbler, you never know. A few years ago, we had kind of an early spring. It was right around this time because it was when the Lilac Festival was happening. And black-throated blue warblers were flowing in, and then it got really cold. And all of a sudden, they were showing up at people's Oriole feeders. So we had people sending in photos all the time of them just perched on their Oriole feeders, and people are going, what is this thing? They were black-throated blue warblers. So it was just for a couple days while we had that cold weather, and then they went on their way to eating insects like their natural food like they would do. So you just never know what you might see in your backyard, including a bird like this. So this is a black-throated blue warbler, really cool little bird. Here's another type of warbler called a northern parula. So this one isn't going to be as dark blue as that black-throated blue warbler, so you can see just how dark this one is. But the parula is going to be more of a light, almost like a powder blue, and it's got a yellow throat and it's got a yellow patch on its back, almost between its shoulders there. So this is a really neat sighting here. Another photo sent in by Wojtek of a northern parula. So really, really neat sighting. Yet another warbler species. And here's another warbler called a common yellowthroat. And these are pretty chatty too once they start singing. But they've got that yellow throat, but they have that big black mask. So they are quite easily identifiable. At least the males are easily identifiable. So if we see a warbler that has black all over its eyes, that is going to be your common yellow throat. So we've got the black, and then they've got that white stripe that goes kind of over their face there. So another warbler that's flowing into the area. Here's a good photo of it here too, where you can really see that yellow throat, the black patch over its eyes, and then the white stripe above that. So really neat sighting. So if you've got any warblers, we'd love to know what kinds you're seeing, and we'll talk even more about warblers on Tuesday with our next broadcast. We'll do a deep dive into our warblers. Some more sightings you guys have been sending in. Here's a green heron. Check out by marshes. If you're just seeing great blue herons, look for something smaller. This is a green heron. So we've got green heron, we've got great blue heron. People had been seeing least bittern and bittern earlier in the season, so you never know what kind of heron-like birds you might. Love this set of photos here. So it's nesting time, and people are definitely reporting bluebird nests, eggs being laid in houses. So far, I know some of you guys are posting some comments. We'll see if anybody's eggs have hatched. I hadn't heard of that yet, but we'll see if anyone's had eggs hatch yet. Here is a great set of photos sent in by Ed of some Carolina wrens. He says, well, I guess we can't use the front door for a few weeks. A couple of Carolina wrens decided to build a nest in the wicker flower holder right next to the door, and we just realized there are 5 chicks living there. Mom and Dad are very busy bringing tasty bug morsels every 3 to 5 minutes all day. Looks like Mom brought a cricket for this meal. So this is the kind of thing we talk about when Orioles disappear from people's feeders. About a month from now or so is usually when that happens. They are changing their diet to a lot of insects. So that is when they start coming to feeders that have mealworms in it. And this behavior is exactly why. So if you look at this Carolina wren, it looks like it's got a cricket in its bill there that it's feeding to its young. They will feed the babies lots and lots of insect material. And it's going to be that soft kind of insect material too. If you kind of think about different insects, some of them are pretty hard bodied, like a stink bug or a beetle. They've got that really hard shell on their body, but others are more soft bodied, like a cricket, like mealworms, like caterpillars. Not an insect, but spiders are a good example of some of those soft bodied types of creatures that birds will feed to their young. So if you do have some baby birds like this in your backyard and you want to kind of supplement what the parents are feeding it, mealworms are definitely going to be the way to go. And they do prefer live mealworms to freeze dried, but it's just very behavior here that shows why they come to the mealworms so much once those eggs have hatched. And not only can you see the possible mother here with that juicy cricket in her mouth, but here are some of the babies. Look at them, they're so cute. They're all beak. And then I love this photo here of them all begging for the food. So really cool photos there sent in by Ed of some Carolina wren babies. And I heard a Carolina wren in my backyard this morning singing its little heart out. So we were talking about the black and white warbler that you can see crawling on trees. Also keep your eye out for the brown creeper, which will creep up trees. So it's going to be very brown in color, really blends in well with tree bark. But these guys are going to be crawling up trees. So if you're scanning tree trunks looking for black and white warbler, keep your eye out for brown creeper also, which look like this. And just like that, brown thrasher we were talking about earlier and comparing them to thrushes and how different thrushes can and can't look like. The brown thrasher, that brown thrasher had that decurved bill, the bill that curved down. So does the brown creeper. So it's got that little bill that just makes a little curve downward. White-throated sparrows. So white-throated sparrows are out. They're singing. People are getting them underneath their feeders. I haven't been getting white-throated, but I had some white-crowned sparrows in my yard this week. Bob sent in this photo. He said, under the You Learn Things Every Day, I was reading that white-throated sparrows have a morph, which is tan-striped instead of the more typical white-striped. Here is a photo of each. So here is a photo of your more typical plumage of your white-throated sparrow. But then here is the more tan-colored white-throated sparrow. So it still has the same characteristics, just not as bright. So look at this white-throated sparrow here. It's got the white patch on its throat, and it has the yellowish coloration right above its eyes. You can see that both of those are still here with this more tan morph, but they're just not as bright. So it does have that white patch, and it's got that yellow above its eye. So that is white-throated sparrow photos. They're sent in by Bob. Mark sent in these photos from Montezuma, some other different types of birds here. Glossy ibis. So these are really, really neat looking birds here that flow through Montezuma. So there's a glossy ibis, not really anything else that quite looks like them that we have in the area. A few snow geese still bopping around. Here is another yellow rumped warbler. So again, you can see the yellow on the side of its body and the little yellow rump patch there. Baltimore Oriole. And then some other photos around the Erie Canal. Here is an osprey catching its dinner. So a really cool photo there of an osprey. And you can see another behavioral thing it does. Not only do they fly down to the water, grab the fish, and then fly off, they tend to pivot the fish so it is not sideways when they're flying, so it's facing straight ahead. And that's to help with drag so that they're not They're not dragging this big fish that's lengthways in front of their body, but it's facing straight to help with any kind of drag. So if you ever are lucky enough to see an osprey catch a fish, watch how they pivot it, and you can see it right here that it's pivoting it so it's facing the same way as the osprey to not catch so much wind and so much drag. So really neat behavior that you can see there. That's a very typical thing for ospreys to do. So pretty cool. And then here are some red-tailed hawks. Really great photo there. And then a crow chasing red-tailed hawks. This is the time of year where you'll start to see crows chasing red-tailed hawks more. Crows also going after owls if you happen to have owls around. The red-winged blackbirds going after crows, going after blue jays, going after hawks. So they're definitely trying to scare birds away from their nests more so than usual. Crows are always pretty rambunctious around birds of prey, even when it's not breeding season. But right now it's going to be even more so now that they're trying to scare them away from their nests. And here's another red-tailed hawk here as well. So now this is a sharp-shinned hawk, a picture sent in by Bob, who says, the number of times I've seen this hawk in my backyard is too many to count. This time it was intent on getting a red squirrel, but sadly it did not. It was moving from branch to branch, high and low, side to side, but the squirrel was too shifty. It finally gave up. My guess is a sharp-shinned hawk. So some more bird of prey photos here sent in by Bob. Some wonderful photos here of a sharp-shinned hawk. I agree. It does look like a sharp shin. It's hard to identify sometimes, but it does look like it has kind of a smallish head. That's one way you can identify them there. So really cool sharp shin hawk photos. Lots of neat photos you guys have been sending in. We will absolutely be on the lookout for new birds as they come in. If you have any questions, you can absolutely put them in the comments. As far as attracting some of these birds to your backyard, there are some products that people have been using that have really helped. First, of course, is the type of food you put out will determine what kind of birds you get. Nectar this time of the year is great. You need it for hummingbirds. You need it for the Orioles. And then you might get other birds like those gray catbirds coming to your Oriole feeders or hummingbird feeders. Every once in a while, people get yellow-bellied sapsuckers coming to their Oriole feeders. So definitely put out your nectar. If you happen to be around today, stop by. We might still have a few packs of this nectar giveaway going on right now at the birdhouse. So that is still an option. And birdberry jelly, definitely want to stock up on jelly for your Orioles. Once you really start getting them coming to your yard with some kind of regularity, they can go through quite a bit of jelly. So you want to make sure you're stocked up. And if you are putting out nectar and you don't have the time or ability to change it out every 3 or 4 days, try the Nectar Defender. So this has been kind of a perpetually good seller for us year over year. It's made to be put into any kind of nectar to keep it fresh longer. So that'll keep your nectar fresh for more like a week or 10 days as opposed to just a few. So if you're going out of town or anything like that, you can put out your Nectar Defender. And of course, it is Oriole time. So our best seller as far as Oriole feeders go is this simple style feeder. It's called the Oriole Fest. It might look like a hummingbird feeder. There's going to be a couple differences. The first is that the ports that the Orioles will feed from are going to be bigger than your typical hummingbird feeder. Hummingbirds just need a little tiny hole in order to poke their beak inside, but Orioles tend to need something that's bigger. And then it has larger perches on it as well. So there are dish style feeders like this for hummingbirds, but if they have a perch, it's usually quite small, and the feeding ports are also smaller. So that's the main difference between the Oriole and hummingbird feeder. This also has spots where you can put jelly on the top, and you can even spear an orange right on the top as well. So that's been very, very popular. And if you don't have a weather guard, most people will add a weather guard after the fact, especially for jelly. If it rains, if we have kind of a dreary, rainy day, it only takes one rainstorm to really wash out all the jelly from your feeder. So you can always add a weather guard. You just hang this feeder and it'll keep it dry. So that is another thing you can put out in your yard to help the birds. And then also I've been getting lots of action at my ant moat. So this, you fill it with water, you hang your feeders from it, and the ants can't get around the water to get down to the feeder. We have them in all different colors. You can color coordinate your hummingbird feeder with a red ant moat or an oriole feeder with the orange ant moat. I've been using the clear one, and I like it because you can see just how much water is still in there. Or if it gets dirty, you can kind of see it a little bit better. But I've been getting goldfinches like crazy drinking out of this. So that's been really fun to see. So it's kind of got like a dual purpose there. It's an ant moat, and it also acts as like a type of bird bath. And if you are putting out a bird bath, that's also important this time of the year because not all birds will come to the feeders, but they all need some kind of water. Bird baths can get kind of gross pretty quickly. We have something called bird bath protector that you can, it's a liquid. You can put just a little capful of this in the water each time you go to fill your bird bath, and that just helps break some of that gunk down that gets in there. So makes it so you don't have to rinse it out as often. You still want to keep it clean, but you just won't have to do it every single day. And then of course the solar bubbler fountains. I love this. Anytime the sun hits the solar panel on top of this unit, it creates a spray. So you can make it like a bubbler, like this kind of thing, where it'll just do a little spout of water, or you can have it spray a mist, which is what I do. And every time it's running, I get all kinds of birds coming to it. So it does seem to make a difference as far as how many birds you get into your bird bath. So I love this. It's all self-contained, so you don't need any cords or cables or anything, which is also nice. So something else to think about. And then speaking of ants, if you're trying to keep ants away from your feeder and you don't have the ant moat, or it's in a spot hanging an ant moat might make it too low, you can use this. This is called Nectar Fortress Ant Repellent. It's a little gel, and it smells like cinnamon. And I don't know if you can see from the picture there. You put a little line around the pole, or even around the feeder itself, and the ants won't cross that line of the gel. There's something about the smell of it that they don't like. So we have people that swear by that product that absolutely love it. So that's another thing you can do to keep ants out of your feeders. And then finches. We've been getting so many reports of finches coming to feeders, and I'm no exception. I've been getting a ton of goldfinches, a ton of house finches, and they have been devouring this blend we have called Finch Favorite. So if you're feeding finches now, you might be feeding them Niger seed, which they absolutely love. But this is a combination of Niger and ground up sunflower hearts, and they drain it so fast. They absolutely love it. So if you're looking to give your finches a little bit something extra, or if you haven't seen a lot of finches recently, make sure your seed is fresh because it can go bad after 2 or 3 months. And you might want to think about adding a little bit of the Finch Favorite to your feeders just to give them some sunflower hearts and something a little bit more rounded. And then rose-breasted grosbeaks. If you're trying to attract them, the seed, of course, makes a difference. Anything with sunflower seed in it is great. Safflower. Our Cardinal Elite blend has all their favorites in it, and our Chickadee blend does also. So our Chickadee blend has everything our Cardinal blend has. And make sure you've got a feeder that's nice and open with lots of either big perches, or it's a tray like this, something with a lot of perching room. And that's going to be your best bet with getting those rose-breasted grosbeaks, so some of those larger birds. And like I said earlier, they've been coming to my safflower log. I've been getting one just chowing down on the safflower log without a care in the world. So this is really great because it lasts a long time, and we just got even larger ones in, which I just bought this morning. So if you're trying to attract the grosbeaks, that's a good way to go, because if you've got some kind of a loose seed and the birds are just going through it really quickly where you can't keep it filled all the time, these logs will last a lot longer. So a lot of people have been adding this to their feeding repertoire. And then finally, we have binoculars, of course, especially if you're looking for something for Mother's Day. They make really good gifts. These are really good if you're looking for something that's kind of middle of the line for somebody that's just gotten into birding. These are called the Prostaff 3s. They're $130, and they are fantastic. for the price. So of course we've got things that are less expensive. We've got things that are higher end that are more expensive. But if you're looking for like an easy Mother's Day gift, something that's about $100, these Prostaff 3s, you absolutely can't go wrong. And then of course we have gift certificates as well. If you have no idea what to get your mom, you can buy these on our website on thebirdhouseny.com. You can come in and you can buy them for your loved one. And of course, we've got all kinds of fun bird themed gifts too for Mother's Day. So this is today is usually at the Birdhouse our busiest day of the year because everybody is shopping for moms. So let's see what kind of things you guys have in the comments. If you have any cool birds you've seen, absolutely put them in there. If you have any questions, we would like to know those too. So Bob is on. Bob, who sent in a lot of neat photos. He says, Bluebird news, something got into the Bluebird house and poked holes in all the eggs. So I took out the nest and eggs after Mom and Dad left the area, cleaned it too. Those eggs are so small. They were about a week later. Here we are about a week later and house sparrows came around. I put a bag over the house. They are not happy. Oh no, so that's a bummer. So we hear about that every once in a while. With house sparrows being around, it could have been them. House sparrows are known to go into houses and destroy eggs like that. Also, wrens are. So it could be either. I know house sparrows get a pretty bad reputation on that kind of thing, but wrens are known to do it also. So either one of those two would be my best guess. Bob also says, and just before you went live, a great crested flycatcher came and I ran and captured some photos I'll post later. Awesome. So Bob is seeing the great crested flycatcher. We actually did a bird walk on Monday with Friends of Washington Grove in the Cobbs Hill area, and we saw a great crested flycatcher that morning. So that was pretty cool. That's a really great place to go if you're in the Rochester area. Check out Cobbs Hill, Washington Grove, it's called. It's a nice little wooded park right in the middle of the city. So it's a nice little gem there. Randy says, good morning. Good morning, Randy. Randy also says, Red-wing blackbird singing its heart out this morning in the neighbor's tree. Yeah, red-wing blackbirds are definitely around. Some people are reporting them coming to their feeders still. They're kind of dispersing and going out more towards the wetlands where they're going to be breeding. But yeah, red-wing blackbirds still coming to feeders. Great sighting. Nancy says, I have daily visits from rose-breasted grosbeaks. Just past week, what a thrill when perched in my kitchen window shrub for the longest time yesterday. Yeah, so here's some more rose-breasted grosbeak photos here. They're definitely around coming to feeders. Usually they don't stay around for too long. I tend to see them for about a week, sometimes a little bit longer before they just disappear. So it's not like an oriole that'll kind of stick around for a little bit longer. They kind of fizzle after a little bit. So definitely enjoy them while you have them. Really, really beautiful birds here. Randy says lots of grackles this week. Yeah, grackles definitely around. Patricia says frustrating. Bluebirds nested in their house, one egg today. Sparrows took over the bluebird house. So in the past, we've talked about different ways you can keep the sparrows from getting into the bluebird houses. If you have bluebirds in there and they are becoming established and they've laid an egg, you can always add what's called a sparrow scarer or sparrow spooker to the bluebird house. It is some shiny reflective tape that will hang over the top of the house, and that can scare the sparrows away. You have to put it on once an egg is laid in order for it to work. Otherwise, it can scare the bluebirds away too. But that's the thing we've heard works the best. And we actually do have them for sale now at the store. Might be worth a shot if it's something you can attach to your bluebird house if they do start to become established again. Ed says, we had the first male rose-breasted grosbeak on Wednesday. There have been 2 female rose-breasted grosbeaks working the feeders since last weekend, so that may have that. Wait, I can't read it well. I'm having trouble. Okay, there have been 2 female rose-breasted grosbeaks working the feeders since last weekend, so that male may have a choice if he's lucky. Okay, that's what it says. Also, we have a Carolina wren nest with 5 chicks right outside our front door. Mom and Dad are feeding the chicks bugs and such every 5 minutes all day long. Okay, so Ed sent in those photos of the Carolina wrens nesting, and they had that cricket in their bill. And it sounds like they are coming to the nest very, very often with different insect material. So it does not surprise me. They usually don't, the nestlings, once they've hatched, they're usually not in the house all that long at all, or in the nest, I guess I should say nest or house. It's usually no longer than 2 weeks. So in that 2 week time, they're eating all this insect protein, and that's what makes them so big. And then they're easily then they can easily fledge once they're big enough to leave that nest. So pretty amazing that they're coming around about every 5 minutes with insects. This is why you should never take a baby bird in on your own, because they do have to eat just so much insect material that it can be really hard to keep them alive because they're eating all day long. Margaret says, good morning, had 2 rose-breasted grosbeaks at the feeder several times yesterday afternoon. Also had fun watching 2 male orioles chasing each other right through the trees. They are gobbling up the jelly like crazy. All right, so Margaret also had rose-breasted grosbeak sightings this week, which is very exciting. Randy says a sparrow nest was attacked by a crow. I didn't see any eggs in its beak, so hope there wasn't any eggs. Ooh, yeah, the crows definitely will go after nests of other birds. So it's not just sparrows and wrens that'll go after other birds' eggs. Crows do it usually to eat them. So do blue jays, are another bird that are well known to go after young birds and their eggs. Margaret says male rose-breasted grosbeak back right now, so she's getting the rose-breasted grosbeaks this morning too. So definitely keep your eyes out on your feeders this weekend. If you haven't been around to keep an eye out on your feeders, this is the weekend to do it. If you're looking for the grosbeaks, they're definitely being reported at lots and lots of feeders. Debbie says Baltimore Orioles showed up to my feeder on May 3rd. All right, so Debbie has had Baltimore Orioles this week. Randy says, nice capture, Ed, as far as your wren photos go. Lynn says, just spotted my first Oriole. I'm right there with you, Lynn. I just had one this morning. Catherine says, there's a partially eaten robin in my yard. What would have killed it, a crow or hawk? Possibly. Partially eaten birds are usually going to be the work of something like a cat. If you've got cats in the neighborhood, that would be my best guess. Also, screech owls will sometimes do that. They will decapitate sometimes birds and then leave their bodies in just kind of on the ground. So that could be it. It could have also been a hawk would be my best guess. If it was an adult robin, probably not a crow, but a hawk could definitely do it. Like those photos Bob sent in of the sharp-shinned hawk. There's sharp-shinned hawk, there's Cooper's hawk. Both of them will readily go after birds. So it could have been one of them. They started eating it and something scared them away and they might have just left it. Lynn says Merlin heard a flycatcher too. So Lynn's been using, sounds like, the Merlin sound ID, and she found a flycatcher. So really cool. You never know what you're going to hear on that. Ed says, by the way, the mom and dad Carolina wren visit bugs, nuts, and fruit log dozens of times per day. Not sure if the chicks get any of that food, but the parents love it. So Ed's nest here with all of that action happening. Here, let's see. The parents, the wren parents, are eating the bugs, nuts, and fruit log, which is something like this, like that safflower log I was showing. But it has peanuts in it, it has sunflower hearts, it has fruit, and of course it has mealworms in it, which the wrens really like. And I know Ed's bluebirds were eating it. So who knows if they're feeding the chicks any of that? They might be feeding the chicks the mealworm portion of that. But certainly the adults will eat the sunflower hearts and they'll eat those mealworms. So there's really something in it for any kind of bird that's going to come to a feeder. So we do have it in the log form. We also have it in bags that you can just pour into a feeder too. So we definitely have that option. So look at all those hungry babies to feed. So they're gonna have a busy week. That mom's gonna have a busy Mother's Day feeding all those babies. Susan said, I've had a hummingbird visit a couple times. So there are some more hummingbird reports coming in. It wouldn't surprise me, looking at the migration map, seeing that there's going to be some more migration coming through earlier next week, like going in here to the night of May 9th into the 10th, which is Monday going into Tuesday, wouldn't surprise me if we have more hummingbird activity by then, because we're starting to see some more light colored movement here, which means more birds flowing into our area. So wouldn't surprise me if by early next week we're getting more and more reports of hummingbirds visit feeders. So don't get discouraged if you haven't seen your hummingbirds yet. I'm right there with you. I just got my first Oriole this morning, so seems to be possibly a little delayed as far as the big push of birds, but keep your eyes out for the Orioles and rose-breasted grosbeaks, because people are definitely reporting them. Just like Sandy here, she says, rose-breasted grosbeak male and female at my feeder. Oh, I just started using the Merlin Sound ID and found a blue and black-throated warbler after it told me it was there. It also told me there's an indigo bunting. Ooh, but I couldn't zero in on it. So that's why I love this app. It helps you find things you didn't even know that you had around. So really, really fun. If you do have a smartphone, I highly recommend the Merlin app. So lots of fun to be had. It looks like that is everybody's comments and questions for the day. We'll be back on Tuesday talking all about warblers. And of course, we'll give you an update on other things that are coming into the area and other products that you can use to attract them to your yard. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. To all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day. And we will be back on Tuesday with another broadcast. Bye-bye.